Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today in this video we will cover scope in Java. Basically when we write a variable inside a function and try to access and use somewhere else. So Java gave you a giant red error cannot find symbol. That because of scope. In this video we will cover the scope in the Java, and in the end of the video we will cover some questions which is helpful in the exam and interview and some important notes. So let's start now. First, we understand the local variable and its scope. Then we understand the global variable and its scope. So basically, local variable define a variable inside a function. When a variable we define an initialization in the function, so that is the local variable. Example temporary result or temperature equal 100. So local variable are like the table lamp inside your bedroom. Like we understand that in the bedroom uh, we use table lamp. So outside the bedroom we are not see and use the table lamp, but inside the room we use. So basically local variable is related to this, how the local variable only access and use in this function, not the outside of the function. So it's the accessibility only the curly braces means. In the curly braces we understand that this is the function public static void another method. So in this curly braces only if I initialize any variable, so the accessibility only this function and this curly braces. Outside the function we are not access the local variable. So basically this is the important point. People standing outside on the street cannot see it or use it. So basically the local variable only use in the function and the curly braces. And if we want to use the means the local variable, so we use a parameter and return type to use the local variable in. And if we are not use this parameter and return type, so we are not access the local variable. So the local variable scope is only the function scope, means the curly braces its scope. So let's understand in this example. First the class we create scope demo, and in the void main function, in the main function a string local message means this is the local variable and which is a declaration in the main function, and print the local message. So in the main function it simply print the local message I am a local to main, means this work. Why? Because its scope is this function, this curly braces. But another side we try to access in the another function which is another method and we print local message, so it give error. Java can't see it here and Java give some error. So Java why give the error? Because the local variable scope in the curly braces and the function end. So basically if I try to access the local variable in another method, so simply we return this variable and we access this method, and inside of return method there is no solution to access this variable, and if we try, so it give error. So basically this is the local variable. So let's see the local variable in the VS Code. I already create a class is scope and the main function. Simply we create a function public static void local scope. Okay, and we simply initialize a variable num5 and simply we print this out dot print num. And in the main function we simply call the function local scope and check it simply print, so its output is 5. Why? We see that java scope dot java. So we see that the simply 5 is printed, but if we try the num variable printed use in the main function, so simply we print system dot out dot print and we simply print the num. So nothing, and here we call also the function the local scope, we call it and check it what is the output. So this is simply printed, but this is not printed and give error. So the output not printed. Why? System.out num cannot find symbol, and it give the line number also 8. So in the line number 8 it's give error cannot find symbol variable num and the location is class scope, so it give the scope. So the local variable only access in the function, but we try to access and use in the void main function. Simply its return type is int, and simply not print this, we simply return return num, and here we print this. So simply when we call this function, so the output simply printed, and it is not give the error. Why it is not give the error? Okay, okay. So simply here we print system dot out dot print when we call, because it return a function and clear, and we remove this because directly we are not printed, it give error. And when java scope.java, so simply it print 5. But why? Because it return the num, so directly we are not use the local variable. Second is global variable. Global variable define a variable at the very top. In the class we declare the global variable, and the global variable access any method access the global variable. Username alex. Global variables are like the street light outside. Everyone on the block can see them and use them. So in this class, any function access the global variable. How many function? The all the function are access the global variable, because the global variable declare inside the class, not the function. So that is the difference between the local variable and global variable. Local variable declare in the function, and global variable declare in the class. So the global variable declare two types: first using static keyword, second is without static keyword but using the object. So let's see the example of static and without static keyword. First, we understand the static keyword. We declare a scope demo class create, and the local variable is inside the class. We simply create static string status, and we create a variable using static keyword. That is important point. Then we create a function void check scope and create a variable string secret, which is local. I am hidden in a check scope, and print the status. So in the function check scope we access the status variable. So simply it work. Why it is work? Because it is declared in the class, not the function. So every function use the global variable and access the global variable without any error. So that is the example of static keyword, where simply we use static keyword and simply we print the variable in a function. And the another example is without static keyword. So in when we are not use the static keyword, where we use the object, where we create a object, and using object we access the global variable. Why it is happen, we see in the in this lecture, but first we understand the example. So first we in the class scope demo we create initialization a integer health equal 100, that is also a global variable, but here we are not use the static keyword. And in the void main function we create a object scope demo is a class name, and the object name is player 1, and and then we using the object we access this health. So simply it is helpful, but if we try to access without object, simply we use system dot out println and health, so it give error. Why? Because here we are not use static keyword. Why it is happen? Let's see now. So let's see the global variable in the VS Code. First we create the global variable num equal 5, and we try in the main function to access this system dot out dot print num. So it give error. Why? So java scope dot java. So it's give error non-static variable num cannot be referenced from a static context. So it give errors. That reason we create this global variable static. Using static, simply it's not give error, and simply it print the output 5. So that reason why we static this. And if we try we are not create this static, we see if we are not create static, so in the void main we simply create a function object. Simply we create a object. So object of the class is, first we create scope as equal new scope we create, and using s dot num we print, simply it give output, and simply it print the 5. Because if we try to non-static variable axis which is global variable, so this is must be create a object, then using object we access the global variable. So basically this is the difference between a static keyword and non-static keyword of global variable, and how we use it and access it. So first we understand why use static for a global variable, and if we use static, so why we you are not create a object. So we use static when the variable should belong to the entire class rather than one single person or object. When we use static keyword, so we understand that static is a public and entire class, not a single person or object. Example, if you are making a game and gravity should be static because it's the same for every player. So basically when we use static keyword where we are not create a object. Second is, why do we need an object if it's not static? If a variable is not static, Java treat it as an instance variable. Like an example of variable, this means it only exists inside an instance or a function, a copy of a class. So when we are not create a variable as a static, so it means Java understand a copy of the class. Example, the class is a blueprint for a car. The variable color non-static is written on that blueprint. You cannot drive a blueprint, and you cannot paint a blueprint. To use the color, you must build the car, create the object. Once the car is built, it has a physical place to store that color. So basically that is the difference between static keyword and without static keyword of global variable. So the last question is, why we use parameter and return value in the local variable or global variable. So if a function variable is trapped inside local, means when a variable create in the function, so how do we get data out? So why how we use, so we I already tell you, we return it and use and access it. And second is, how do we get outside data in? So we use parameter, means the outside data how we use, so using parameter we get it. So this is the some important notes which help your exams. The first is the curly braces rules. A variable life start at the curly where it was born and end at the corresponding. So the local variable start in the function and end the end of the function. So that is the local variable rule. Static versus local. Explain that because main is static, our global variable need to be static. Means the main is also a static and global also a static if we want to use it directly. But if we want the global variable without static, so we need to create a object, and using that we access the variable. Memory management, you can mention that local variable are stored on the stack while global instance variable line on the heap. So the local variable is stored in the stack and the global variable is stored in the heap. So basically this is the, in this video, the difference between local variable and the global variable, and the understand of the local variable and global variable and its scope also. Thank you everyone. If you like my video and understand the video, please subscribe and share the video and comment on the below. Thank you.